welcome to Things Are Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
And that doesn't really news again, do we?
No, I've got nothing.
Actually, no, okay, we'll say we have got plans for the first film, eventually, which is a few seasons off yet, but we're going to live tweet it, I think, as our current plan.
Yeah, unless anything changes between now and 3 seasons' time.
Yeah. It's either that or do a running commentary live, but it's a case of, does anyone want a 2-hour-long episode? Maybe. I don't know if we have anything interesting to say for the bulk of it, though, and might get off on weird tangents.
Yeah, true.
It might be fun. But anyway, yes, current plan is X-Files Fight the Future will be live tweeted. At a nearer point, we'll arrange when we're actually going to do it, and Kim will handle it on Twitter, and we'll do an all episode as well.
Following on from last week as well, I've managed to get my hands on the last of the X-Files young adult novels, though, as I mentioned last week, I still cannot find the ones for Ascension and for Colony and Endgame anywhere. If you do know where I can find copies, even ebooks of these, just let me know. I just like to read them so I can talk about them during our episodes.
But I suppose without further ado, we can get to this week's episodes. So first we have Blood, broadcast on the 30th of September 1994, directed by David Nutter, and for the first time we have a story credit of Story by Darin Morgan. More of him later. But the episode itself was written by Morgan and Wong. Guest stars. The most prominent would be William Sanderson as Edward Funch, who a lot of people will know as J.F. Sebastian in Blade Runner. He's also in Rocketeer.
He's one of the randos at the bar in Rocketeer, I think.
Skeets, according to this. It's been too long since I watched Rocketeer. But he was also on Babylon 5 once as a character called Juice, who actually recurs in a few of the different Babylon 5 spin-offs, so someone of note. He was in the strangely named Maximum Bob, which I did watch when it came out, which was based on a book by the same writer as Get Shorty, where he played Dickie Crow. And he was in American Gods as the bookkeeper, which I don't think we got that far.
No, possibly not.
We have John Saigon as Sheriff Spencer, who was sadly passed away in 2017, but he's one of these people who is in the X-Files, has a film and TV career, but also lots of voice work.
Okay.
So he was in Treasure Planet as Headley, Cars as Richard Clayton Kensington, Wall-E as Axiom Passenger Number 3, additional voices in Despicable Me 3, which was his final role. He was in Frasier as Doug Harvey, an obscure one, which I very much like. He's in Grandier 2 as Melphis.
Oh, right.
He's also, and this is really good, he's Solid as Snake in Metal Gear Solid.
Oh, cool.
in Game 2 and 4. He's also in Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 as Candace Ordo, and in Knights of the Old Republic 2 as Mandalore. And then he was also in Broken Age as Dad, who it's been way too long since I played Broken Age. That was a Double Fine one.
Oh, I know who he must be, yeah.
Yeah, that's him.
Mm.
Kimberly Ashland Gear, who played Bonnie McRoberts, who, in other film career moments, was also in Space Above and Beyond, which will be the series that Morgan and Wong will leave the X-Files to go and make. She was also a body double in Basic Instinct and Indecent Proposal, and is an award-winning pornographic actress. And we have reprising their roles of Bruce Harwood, Dean Hagland, and Tom Braidwood as the Lone Gunmen. I think we covered them last time, what they've done elsewhere, haven't we?
Mm.
And the guy who we recognised and couldn't place, Larry Winter, who may or may not be the mayor of the town, he was the Doctor in Eve.
Oh, right. Yeah,
That's
I thought
him.
he looked familiar.
Yeah. So, Blood. Edward Funch, a postal worker, is told he will be laid off. Shortly after this, he begins to see Kill 'Em All on a digital display. Elsewhere, a man in a crowded lift sees No Air on the lift display. It swiftly changes to Can't Breathe and Kill 'Em All. Sometime later, Mulder is called in the aftermath of an apparent massacre. The man apparently killed 4 people with his bare hands and was shot by a security guard. He is the 8th person who between them have killed a total of 22 people in the town in the last 6 months. Mulder notes the damaged display on the lift and the residue on the killer's fingertips. Funch uses an ATM and sees Take His Gun and Kill 'Em All before attacking the screen and fleeing. Scully reads Mulder's initial report, of which he notes the only connection between the killers is the damaged electronic displays. Meanwhile, Bonnie McRoberts tries to pick up her car from a repair shop before killing the mechanic after another display goads her into the act. When Mulder and the sheriff question her the next morning, the microwave suggests killing them. She cuts Mulder and is shot dead by the sheriff. Scully performs an autopsy on McRoberts and finds signs of phobia, including high levels of adrenaline and the same substance as on the hands of the elevator killer. She hypothesizes the substance may produce LSD-like reactions. Funch becomes more and more psychotic and sees more and more violent messages. He ends up buying a gun after a volunteer asks him about a blood donation. Mulder stakes out an orchard after talking to the Lone Gunmen about spraying pesticides. He then sees a message on TV and conjectures that the chemical and the subliminal messaging might exacerbate people's phobias and urge them to kill. The chemical in question was designed to create a fear reaction in insects. Mulder suspects the town is a test case for the chemical and eventually gets agreement to test the populace for levels of the substance, under the guise of a cholesterol test. They quickly realise that Funch has not been among those who've been tested and find multiple damaged displays and an empty rifle case at his home. Funch heads to the blood drive he was previously asked about and begins shooting. Mulder manages to disarm him, but Funch understands little of what has happened to him, despite Mulder's hopes about understanding the situation. Mulder then tries to call Scully and sees one final message on his phone, which reads, "All done, bye-bye." I think this is possibly the least good Morgan and Wong episode we've had so far.
I think you're too harsh on this one. I like it.
Oh, I quite enjoy it, but at the same time, it's a bit all over the place.
I don't know about all over the place. It's certainly, I think, possibly more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah. Also, I did note in one of the reviews, someone pointed out, and it's a good point, that despite all their paranoia in the first two episodes of this season, Mulder and Scully just work together with no problems at the end of the episode.
Mind, Scully did say that from the start, as she thought that Mulder was being overly cautious, because even in Little Green Men, she said, next time we're going to meet in the open.
It's true. I mean, possibly they have done here. I think there's the technical problem of the episode is, are people really seeing these messages?
There's no way of really knowing.
I think one person pointed out that while you can do some of them, like the lift panel isn't too bad and the mechanic screens are not too bad, the digital watches are a bit of a
the
hard
calculator.
one to do. And the calculator, yeah. And his postcode machine.
You've got to assume that there's some level of subliminal messaging working, otherwise the episode doesn't work, though.
Yeah, it can't just be the chemical, otherwise the town will tear itself apart.
I think the idea was supposed to be it's the chemical on top of some kind of, like, subliminal command that is kind of triggering this paranoia in a specific aggressive sort of way.
Yeah, the sleepy rural populace where no one killed anyone.
I don't think it really comes across in the episode. Oh, get it out the way now, this is another one that has a middle grade novel. It's another one written by Les Martin, and its title is Fear. But in the middle grade novel, which I actually thought had a better narrative than the episode, and it's one of the rare times I think I will say that, because Les Martin shows you a lot of what's going on in Ed's mind throughout the course of it, and it kind of makes clear as well that the people who are the killers are people who have got more than a normal dose of this chemical. So Ed in particular lives right next door to an orchard that's been heavily sprayed.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing I think they could have actually done with actually trying to get that across somehow.
Mm.
But yeah, it's just not, and basically Funch is just more susceptible for some reason.
Yeah, it does specifically say, there's definitely a throwaway comment in the novel where Mulder says that every one of them so far has been like next to a farm or something like that. It's how in the end they helped triangulate Funch as well. The other fun thing I found about the novel this time was the censorship. All of them have had some degree of censorship because, of course, it's an adult TV series and you're trying to make this appropriate for readers who may be under the age of 12. But this one in particular had some fun censorship in there. That there's a comment near the start where someone's trying to indicate how nice a person one of the killers usually is by saying he bought a round of beer for us after the baseball game, and in the book it becomes a round of Coke for everyone. Mulder's subscription to a magazine that sounds less wholesome has become the Popular Science magazine or something like that. And also, anything that vaguely resembles a curse word, in particular, Ed going crazy on the bus and saying, "Let me out, damn it," becomes Dag Blammit, which might become my favourite line so far. I posted it on the Twitter when I read it, because Dag Blammit entertains me greatly.
It's a weird censorship, really.
Yeah, but evidently you couldn't have damn it in the middle grade novel.
I do remember, weirdly enough, from the 90s, of The Simpsons being really kind of a contentious issue for a while.
Because it was pre-Watershed.
Well, no, it wasn't The Simpsons. It was Do the Bartman.
Okay.
The song. Because there's one line in it which was the contentious one, which was till Lisa starts blowing that damn saxophone. That's because the one word of damn, and people were sort of really twitchy over it.
They didn't think of Dag Blammit then.
No, apparently no one told the Simpsons people you might want to re-record that. You made the point before that Scully is more eager to not be so paranoid as Mulder and sort of work out in the open and everything.
Yeah.
I did kind of still like, though, the separation means that we get Mulder's report to Scully and she gets to go through it. And there's some interesting stuff you don't hear in a lot of things, is that distinction between a spree killer and a serial killer.
Yeah.
And there is a difference between the two of them. But I also like, though, that Mulder's report, of course, starts bringing up UFOs and alien activity and saying, there's no evidence of it at all. And Scully going, yeah, I wondered when you were going to bring that up.
Even though there's no evidence, he's still got to mention it.
Yeah, but it's also a case of, Mulder, surely this would get you in trouble, given you're not in the X-Files anymore, so this feels really extraneous. Again, we're coming back to The Simpsons of, what with this shipment of guns and drugs coming to the country? Oh, I hardly think the FBI are worried about that kind of thing.
In the last episode, he literally said that to Skinner, though, in front of the board of directors.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
that surveillance of criminal gangs is beneath him.
Yeah. It's Mulder, come on. You just try to lie a little bit.
I don't think Mulder understands the long game.
Absolutely not. It feels a bit clunky as well, though. The whole Mrs. McRoberts kills the mechanic.
I also thought she was kind of interesting in the episode because she totally breaks the pattern.
She does, yeah.
You get the idea that devices have been talking to her for a while, as they did with Ed before he actioned anything.
Yeah.
Because she's gone in to have a smash display on her car fixed, which infers that the car's been talking to her for a while. But unlike all the rest of it, she doesn't go postal in a kind of public area.
No.
She instead just kills one guy in an isolated area. The only way I can think of explaining it is her phobia is kind of, I don't want to use the word smaller in the sense it's not as valid, but it's kind of more isolated than theirs.
Yeah.
Because it always plays on phobias, like the guy who goes crazy in the lift is because he's claustrophobic, and it plays on this with the no air. JF Sebastian is his fear of blood, which causes him bizarrely to have a shootout at a blood drive. But she's afraid of being raped.
Yeah.
So therefore, her kind of phobia triggers when she's alone with one man, who is the seediest mechanic in the world, it must be said. He is terrifying, and you can totally believe her fear blowing up when he's there in the dim light trying to get her to come close to him.
Aside from ripping her off, he does actually seem to be just a mechanic, doesn't he?
Yeah. I think it's pretty obvious he is ripping her off in that episode, but...
Yeah, I think the book makes it a lot clearer.
The book specifically says it, but even in the episode, it's quite clear that he's kind of figured out the fact she knows nothing about her car, and he's trying to milk her for what he can.
But yeah, you point that breaking the pan, though, she doesn't destroy the display at the garage, which she should do if she's following everyone else down the line.
Yeah, she doesn't destroy the display, and she doesn't blow up in a public area and kill half a dozen people like the other ones seem to. I think it's obvious that this is a merging of two episodes as well,
yes,
though.
Yeah.
The whole thing with the government and the hypnotic suggestion making killers is completely different to the plot that seems, well, I presume is inspired by when the government argued that DDT was safe.
Yeah, that feels very tacked on, doesn't it?
They wanted to get this plot about the government spraying dangerous chemicals while claiming they were safe for people, on top of this other plot about essentially making hypnotic sleeper killers.
Yeah, like a few other ones, it's felt like it's an incomplete rewrite, or it's two things have been mashed together and not fully worked through. I
did read it when I was doing my research that they had several inspirations for this.
Yeah.
One was, I don't know if it is DDT, but a similar kind of spraying of pesticides in California. One was Glenn Morgan, who actually does have hemophobia, which is the fear of blood. And I think maybe the last one was something to do with messages coming through on digital readouts or something like that.
Okay.
So they've evidently kind of merged all these strands into one single plot line, which works to a degree, but I don't think it maybe quite gives you the closure that I'd like. It's maybe a kind of look at the other side of the coin. We see in episodes like Deep Throat, the government creating weapons and testing them indeed from alien technology. But this is another string we're seeing in this kind of Ministry of Defense arsenal they've got going here. Or it's Department of Defense in America, isn't it?
It is Department.
Yeah, this sort of DoD experiment where they are testing these different methods of, let's say, assassination or otherwise kind of black ops things that they can deploy that would kill people in a less obvious way. I'm thinking of it as a kind of, you always hear these sometimes missed, sometimes true things like drugs in the drinking water.
Yeah.
It's one of those kind of conspiracies more so, and more like Eve, where they've got this sort of government division that's in charge of these other forms of warfare, should we call it?
Yeah, I suppose alternate forms of warfare.
Yeah,
we'll phrase it that way. Yeah. This does feel like it could be something to do with that. The unethical will test it on the American public, and what they don't know, they don't need to know either. Which is quite horrible things to say.
It's the sort of stuff that would be deployed in the shadows in warfare and maybe a urban legend, but the public will never know the truth about it.
Yeah, well, until like 50 years afterwards when everyone involved is dead or in the nursing home kind of
Or
thing.
when something horrible happens like Agent Orange and then everybody knows about it.
Well, I think we do explicitly mention Agent Orange during our trip to the Lone Gunmen, who have come back, and we're very glad to see them.
I believe they were originally planned just to be an EBE. They were just so popular. They are fun characters.
Even though I think, like you said, they are very tacked on. It's a case of they wanted to bring them in but didn't know quite what to do with them. Hopefully they'll be better integrated in future episodes.
I think it's filling a void because, as we noted last week, there's very little Scully in these episodes because she was pregnant at the time.
Yeah, and we have to do something. That's
so
why
you have your
keeps the
minimalist Gillian Anderson, who's not involved in any of the kind of action sequences and is never shown from the kind of waist down.
No. Well, that's why they share. Mulder's got a succession of other sort of partners. And he's got the guy from the sewage processing in Host. He's got
the sheriff in this one.
And he'll have someone else next episode, but we'll get to him in a minute. But it's great to see Lone Gunmen. And we do get a weird dangling plot thread, which the novel picks up on and the episode doesn't, because Mulder trades Scully. Well, we're led to believe Mulder has traded Scully's phone number for night vision goggles. Frohickey.
In the novel, he certainly has. There's a throwaway comment from Scully right at the end where she says, "Oh, tell Frohickey I've changed my number." So in the novel, you find out for definite he does trade Scully for a pair of night vision goggles.
I can kind of see that being in the script at one point and then being chopped out, because again we get into that whole, we've been building up Mulder respects Scully, and that's really not respecting her, handing over a phone number to a guy she doesn't seem terribly comfortable being around, and the one time we've seen them interact.
Yeah, it seems a bluff for Frohickey to actually contact her as well, as you get the impression he's all talk. I don't think he'd know what to do with that number if he got it. No,
and it's certainly not mentioned. I mean, the ending sting, though, is kind of more, I don't know, not so much profound, more kind of sort of weirdly chilling with the whole all done, bye-bye. It's a case of, yeah, you've run through the experiment, and also, apparently whoever was behind it has been goading you into sort of trying to uncover it. It's really kind of at cross purposes, isn't it? Depending on how many of these subliminal messages are actually happening. But as you said, some of them have to be, otherwise the episode stops making sense.
Some of them need to be, but I'd buy you're going on your kind of, it's not even mass hysteria, just hysteria here, is that once you've had a few genuine messages, you'd be so paranoid that you'd be seeing them everywhere.
Yeah. I think we can discount things like the watch. It's got to be just going into full-blown paranoia.
By that point I will keep harking back to the novel in this one because I still think it's the better narrative. By the time you get to the bit where Ed trashes his house, he is in an absolute frenzy. He's so afraid by that point because you've had the sort of images preying on him, like the weird bits he has in the mall before he buys the gun, where he's seeing kind of flashes of atrocities on TV screens and stuff like that. So by the point of where he sees the advert for the blood drive and then sees the nurse come to his door, he's in an absolute frenzy of panic by that point and smashes everything. So by that point, I could believe that he'd be seeing these messages everywhere.
Could we connect this back to whoever's helping Mulder behind the scenes? The fact that we have got someone the first message Mulder gets is the one, it does come on, it's kind of a sportswear thing, and it's kind of very evocative of the Nike's logo.
Do it.
Yeah. Is it perhaps trying to prod him toward, is this the secret operative prodding him to try and expose it, or is
I
one messing with
wondered
him?
if that first one was one of the ones that isn't genuine, because as you say, it's so much like the the 90s Nike ad campaign that Mulder sees this message flash on the screen and instantly thinks, that's it, I'm seeing them now, but it is just part of the advertising.
Yeah. They do also make that connection to department stores doing this for to make people buy things, which inevitably makes me think of Gravity Falls with the subliminal messaging. Buy more keychains.
Should be noted this is subliminal messaging we're looking at, which is more like the flashes in Fight Club.
Yes. I do get a sort of, our guy Larry Winters, who may or may not be the mayor of the town, he's got to be some
I can't remember what he is, but he is some government official.
It's one of those shorthands. He's very much mayor from Jaws kind of territory. The whole sort of, this thing hasn't worked, so we're going to do spraying in secret. It's been proven safe by one guy. I've got no documentation or evidence of this, but we need to do it, and we need to do it now, but no one can know about it.
No one can know about it, despite the fact we've had 21 murders in the last 6 months. 22 murders in the last 6 months, which puts our crime rate higher than Chicago or something ridiculous.
But it's not connected to the pesticides. No, it can't possibly. I also do think that as much as it apparently works in the episode, this whole cholesterol screening is like one of the worst cover stories I've ever heard. Because you're not going to get a good success rate on cholesterol screening, are you?
It's a really aggressive cholesterol screening program where they're coming to people's doors and kind of demanding to do it. I don't think you buy it for a second, even if you were in a trusting rural community like this is.
Yeah, it's just, what? I've got a note here as well, though, which is an odd one of, as much as we can buy, Ed is destroying anything with an LCD display, or any kind of display at all, TV, calculator. It's a bit weird, but they do actually draw attention in the episode to the fact he destroyed his doorbell, which, I think in 1994, you didn't get doorbells with LCD displays. These days, yeah, you might do, but...
I was thinking more that was just because that woman was going crazy kind of ringing it, so he's removed the problem.
True, but that was from the outside, though, so it's after he'd fled the house.
Mm.
So I'm not quite...
I suppose it doesn't really make sense in that regard.
No, it's a bit weird.
I did think the episode was kind of chilling, and I'm sorry, American listeners, I will make a sweeping generalization here. With the general state of gun crime in America, just this kind of chilling follow-through of somebody who is planning a mass shooting.
Oh, yeah.
So you're following this man who's getting increasingly agitated, although to all intents and purposes from the outside everyone thinks he's a good guy, through him getting increasingly paranoid, being in a bad mental place, buying a gun while being in this bad mental place with no apparent background checks or waiting period.
Yep.
And eventually, like the Texas college shooting, climbing up a gun tower and just blasting at people in a campus.
Yeah. And when he's visibly getting sweatier and sweatier as the episode goes on.
And getting more agitated with people, just randomly breaking down in a shopping mall and shouting at a bus driver and things like that.
Yeah.
It's following a very typical progression of, he was such a nice man, I can't imagine no one would have thought he would have performed this atrocity.
Yeah.
Like you get in a lot of shooting scenarios. I found it less clear in the episode as well, but in the book it's clear that he's actually hitting people when he's shooting them. I don't think anyone dies because Mulder stops him, but there is cries of pain and somebody falls holding their arm and things like that.
Definitely not clear in the episode.
Yeah, it's middle grade, so of course no one was being blasted from a clock tower. I did think the fact that he is actively shooting people is a bit weird, and even Mulder brings it up at the end of it when he tries to talk him down, is if you are afraid of blood, why would you pick a murder method that will create the most amount of blood you can imagine?
That's a very good point. Yeah, go and tip the poison into the reservoir kind of thing.
Yeah, poisoning people, anything that doesn't cause a wound, really. But shooting people with a sniper rifle.
You've got telescopic sight, you're going to see that blood very clearly. That's a good point. I suppose that Mulder actually does try to use that as a part of the talking down, is there will be blood everywhere. It's still one of those... I get the whole, his coherent thoughts have snapped because he's been pushed to the edge with everything that's happened to him. But yeah, it should still be, if he's putting on your phobia of blood, it should still be a deterrent.
It's points for Mulder as well, as it shows something we've kind of forgotten about for a while, is the fact that Mulder is a psychologist.
Yes.
And he's very good at analysing people, and he knows exactly how to talk down this dangerous essential hostage situation. But it's just ruined by the fact that Mulder has the wound on his wrist from when he fought the woman earlier, and when Ed sees the blood, he kind of completely loses his mind.
True, but not in a way that causes him to die, though, because Mulder still manages to get him alive, which is still... You'd expect the wound to be the final,
That either Mulder would have to shoot him or he'd fall out that window during the struggle or something.
So it's a bit odd that detail is like that.
Yeah, I guess it's the only reason is Mulder keeps him alive because he's hoping to learn something from him. And of course, Ed has no idea what's going on either.
And why would you?
Ed's mind is fried by the end of this.
Yeah.
I also kind of like the science in this episode because, as always with X-Files, it's kind of faux science. But I like the kind of logic of it is the idea of spraying a sort of kind of LSD-based chemical that will provoke a fear response in insects. So the idea is it's being used as a pesticide, or at least as Langley explains it, because it'll cause insects to kind of become fearful that they're going to be predated, that the plant is essentially dangerous to them, so the insects will flee away from the plants because they don't want to be eaten.
Yeah.
And it's having that same effect in humans, is it's just kind of causing an increased production of adrenaline and hormones that will make humans fearful, which is why the subliminal messaging works on them.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same as with the plants, though it's, with a more complex human mind, it's just taking that extra bit to push them. Which might be a readout just saying there is no air, which your already panicking brain is thinking, oh hell, I'm going to die in here, and the panic starts.
Sorry, go back to that. That was the longest lift ride in the world. What kind of size building were they travelling up in?
I'm still not sure how... alright, fair enough. We'll go with adrenaline can make people ridiculously strong. Proven, you've seen those stories where women have flipped cars over to save their children and things like that because adrenaline is incredible. But even with this, what did Scully say? 200 times adrenaline in the person's system. How has he not been subdued in a enclosed space in a lift by 5 other people?
Yeah. And only took out 4 of them, and the rest of them apparently managed to get the doors open and flee. You'd
like to think that maybe he'd get his hands on one person and then 4 others would fall on him.
You'd like to think, but everyone else could be having a different fear response, just not as strong as him, because they've also been dosed with the pesticide.
I guess, technically speaking, a lot of people must have been dosed. When you see that helicopter coming over when Mulder gets dosed.
Yeah.
Surprised it doesn't have more of an effect on Mulder, given that he's paranoid all the time anyway.
That seems to come back to how much the subliminal message is affecting things, because someone does seem to be feeding him clues to uncover what's going on, rather than trying to just provoke fear response.
Also, I think the bit in the hospital where Mulder's getting agitated with Larry is supposed to be making you think that, all right, this is the chemical working. But Mulder is that agitated 90% of the time anyway.
And it doesn't pay off to anything.
We've seen him losing his temper with high-ups at the FBI. So him losing his temper with this kind of mayor of the town isn't outside of Mulder's personality. It's not unusual. I guess from another level as well, I think there's a missed opportunity here is we already know that Mulder has a crippling fear of fire from the fire episode in the last season.
That doesn't count anymore.
So we've got the claustrophobic guy, the woman who's afraid of rapists, the guy who's afraid of blood, but nothing plays on Mulder's pyrophobia.
I'm wondering if they'd actually got part of Sleepless written and someone said, oh, you can't actually have fire anymore because we're going to do fire next episode.
True.
It's a poor excuse though, but I am pretty sure, and we will keep an eye out for it, that Mulder's fire phobia literally never comes up again.
Maybe it's cured now.
Yeah.
Saving those kids from a burning building, did it?
Oh, it's been told you can't fight fire with fire? Oh, okay.
I don't think we've really mentioned the character of the sheriff in this either, is that he is probably the most helpful cop we've had in the series so far.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's very obvious that these episodes might have been written without a guarantee of what Gillian Anderson was going to be able to do.
So we needed to kind of shoehorn in a new sidekick.
Yeah, so I think he very much is a easy stand-in in things like the one scene with Mulder, Scully, and the sheriff. That's a later-on rewrite to make sure you could actually have all 3 of them in the scene, but at one point it would just been a 2-sided conversation.
Again, much like Ray and the host.
Yeah.
It's showing at least that not all police are kind of untrustworthy and just not unhelpful, not willing to kind of lend time to the FBI or anything, because this guy's super into it. He's very quick to listen to Mulder. Even when he doesn't believe Mulder, he goes and does his own research and kind of figures things out.
Yeah. Oh, well, that is an interesting point as well, though, because Larry Winters does make an offhand comment that he knows Mulder's reputation. And again, that doesn't seem to be influencing the sheriff at all, because Mulder needs his psychic for the episode.
The sheriff is fair, at least. He kind of hears Larry out, and it's like, all right, did you actually do this? Yes. All right, I'm with the FBI agent then.
Yeah. Is it safe? Well, it's allegedly safe. We couldn't wait for testing.
He's not one of the cops that we've seen previously who are under the thumb of the local government. He will stand up to this guy.
No, or the national government and things like EBE, where pressure seemed to come from very high up.
I was thinking more the Erlenmeyer flask, where the cops are actually covering things up.
Yes, yeah.
Is it a bit stereotypical as well that Ed's a postal worker?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't like to comment. So.
I know we have the phrase going postal for this reason, but it feels this day and age that maybe it's a little stereotypical.
Probably not as much in 1994, though.
Maybe not.
I mean, there is a whole load of jokes in Seinfeld on that very basis that Newman has baked out a few times. So like, why does it happen? Oh, because the mail never stops. It just keeps coming and coming.
You get that episode at first when we learn about the blood phobia because he gets a paper cut and he sees the first message. Is you get that idea of line blindness where he's watching the same repetitive motion and then all of a sudden he starts seeing these messages.
Yeah.
Which I believe is actually a thing, isn't it? In like high-speed environments, it can just drive you a little mad and you can start seeing things.
Well, yeah, as you said, it's that repetitive, just entering the zip codes over and over and over and over and over.
And seeing that fast movement all the time.
Yeah. You're going to start getting weird vision artifacts. So, episode 2 this week is Sleepless. First broadcast on the 7th of October 1994, directed by Rob Bowman and written by Howard Gordon on his own for the first time. Guest stars this week, we have Nicholas Lea as Alex Krycek, previously seen in Genderbender as Michael, I think his name was, who was in the car with brother Marty in female form.
Oh, the one who didn't want people knowing that he might have slept with a guy.
Yes, the transphobe, as I would say. Krycek will be a irregular recurring guest star going forward, who makes it into a lot of the rest of the season. Okay, so for this week specifically, we get John Grease, who played Salvatore Matola. You'll like these ones.
Okay.
Okay, so he was in Get Shorty as Ronnie Wingate. That's from the same writer as Maximum Bob, connecting to William Sanderson back into this. He was in Men in Black as the driver of the van at the start of the film.
Okay, yeah.
He's Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, Uncle Rico.
And apparently there was a TV series of Napoleon Dynamite.
Was there really?
Apparently, and he's also Uncle Rico in that. So
Fair
I'm going to
enough.
have to go look for this because I had no idea that existed. Who knew? And he was in, he's been in Seinfeld twice. And we also have Stephen Williams appearing on screen for the first time as X, or Mr. X. Not to be confused with the one from Resident Evil 2. It's different Mr. X.
That'd be a very different show with that Mr. X in it.
It all just looms out the fog and doesn't say anything anymore. It all just hands him packets and then lumbers off again. And you can ask your age-old question, who does dress Mr. X at the Umbrella Corporation? Do you draw straws?
I'd love to know which temp we get to put Mr. X's hat on.
Not this Mr. X, the other. Anyway, we have Tony Todd as Augustus Cole, best known to us for playing Candyman or Robert Battelio in Candyman.
Daniel Robitaille.
Daniel Robitaille. He was in The Crow, which I'd completely forgotten about.
Yes, he is.
He's in The Rock as Captain Duro. I'd forgotten about that one too.
Final Destination as well as potentially the devil.
Oh, I'm getting to Final Destination. In Wishmaster as Johnny Valentine. Final Destination and Final Destination 2 and Final Destination 3 and Final Destination 5 as William Bloodworth, to give him his actual name.
Oh, he has a name.
Or the Devil.
Yeah, he's probably deaf.
Yeah. He's been in Star Trek Next Generation and in Deep Space Nine twice and in Voyager. Once again, everyone gets into this Star Trek episode somehow. He was in Xena. He was in Riverdale. But the one I like the most is he is the voice of the Vortigaunt in Half-Life Episode 2 and Half-Life Alyx.
Oh, he does have a beautiful voice.
He does have a very lovely voice. Do audiobooks, unless you already do, in which case do more of them. Sat-navs. Get Tony Todd doing sat-navs.
Oh, I'd love to have the Candyman doing my sat-nav.
I don't know if that's a thing anymore. I know that there was a period where celebrity sat-navs was all the rage, and I think it's just completely gone again.
Just hear in tone sweet for the sweet as you reach locations.
No, do I go left or right, Tony? Please. Anyway, there's also Don Thompson, who played Henry Willig, who previously turned up in The X-Files as Holtzman in Conduit. He'll turn up again as Victor stands in The Walk in Season 3, and as a random terrorist in Season 5 for the Pine Bluff variant.
Okay.
He's also in Watchmen as Detective Gallagher, and Sliver as Wally.
Okay.
And for the most random one, Kingdom Hospital as Soda Pop. I cannot remember who that is, but Kingdom Hospital, of all things.
I would like to recommend Kingdom Hospital for everyone. It's an experience.
Yeah, I think you have to put recommending scare quotes because it's one of these whole, just beware you're not getting into anything coherent.
Death is an anteater.
Death is an anteater for the stupidest possible reason. It doesn't make any sense why he's an anteater.
It's a wonderfully surreal horror series.
Yes, you don't usually get Where's My Head Out by Basement Jaxx in any other series, really, do you?
No.
When this guy is literally missing his head. So yes, it's an appropriately titled song for the moment. Would you like to give us a synopsis of Sleepless?
Sleepless takes place in New York City. In our cold opening this time, we see a man inside his apartment at night. The man is later identified as Dr. Saul Grissom. He wakes up to find that the building around him is on fire, and try as he might, he can't extinguish the blaze, so eventually succumbs to it. We then cut to the firefighters arriving to evacuate the building. However, when they reach the room, they find that there is actually no fire there at all, quite confusingly. However, they do find Grissom lying dead but apparently uninjured against the back wall of the room. We then cut to Mulder, who has anonymously received a tape cassette and a news article about Grissom. The cassette is actually his 911 call, which makes reference to the fire, though Mulder finds that unusual because the article doesn't mention it in any way. Mulder approaches Skinner and asks to be put on the case, though Skinner's a bit confused about this and asks to look into it further because Skinner can't see why this is actually a case at all. Eventually, Mulder learns that there is already a case in progress for it that was opened by a greenhorn new FBI agent called Alex Krycek. Because of this, Mulder wants to still investigate it, but as it's Krycek's case, he's supposed to include Krycek in the investigation. However, Mulder doesn't want a new partner and does everything he can to leave Krycek out the loop and otherwise lose him. Mulder contacts Scully, of course, and asks her to perform an autopsy on Grissom. While Scully is doing so, Mulder heads out to the clinic where Grissom works. He discovers it's a place that kind of researches sleep disorders. Apparently, Grissom is an expert in this field and has great success in treating and otherwise curing these sort of sleep disorders like insomnia and things like that. As he's leaving the clinic, Mulder encounters Krycek, who is very, very angry about having been abandoned, so the two of them go back to speak to Scully together. Scully is very confused about what she's found in Grissom's body. Basically, the body has shown all the kind of secondary signs of a fire, but none of the primary signs like external burns. Scully has come to the conclusion that the only way she can explain this is if biologically Grissom's body believed it was burning, even if that wasn't the case. Meanwhile, we cut back to another apartment, this time in Brooklyn. The apartment belongs to a Vietnam War veteran called Henry Willig. He is approached by another ex-Marine who was part of his Vietnam squad, who's called Augustus Cole, or Preacher, as they often refer to him during the episode, because he was a particularly religious man. Both the men voice the fact that something terrible had happened to them, and they are exhausted. We have previously seen that both of the men also have this kind of matching scar across the back of the neck, a very obvious surgical scar. While Cole is talking to Willig in his apartment, weird stuff starts happening. A group of very, very badly wounded Vietnamese zombies, all armed with guns, appear in the room, and they gun down Willig, killing him. As this is kind of later investigated, we see that it's much like the original death, is the fact that Willig has not actually been shot at all. However, his body is showing internal damage that is similar to what you would expect if he had been riddled with bullets. Meanwhile, Mulder is finally approached by the person who's been leaving him these informations and the phone messages over the previous episodes, who is a man who will only identify himself as X. X meets him in a darkened alley in a way that we are very familiar with. It's very similar to how Deep Throat previously met with Mulder. However, X is slightly less friendly than Deep Throat. He believes in Deep Throat's course, but he's not willing to die for it in the way that Deep Throat did. However, X does give him information about a secret military project, which essentially lobotomized a platoon of Vietnamese soldiers. It did extensive frontal lobe surgery to them, which would remove their need for sleep, therefore making them kind of effective soldiers that could just go endlessly without having to stop. Mr. X also provides Mulder with a name, Salvatore Matola, who is a squad member who was mistakenly reported as being killed in action but is actually still living in the New York area. Mulder and Krycek head to meet Salvatore Matola, who tells them more about this project. It did work exactly as X said. These men were made into soldiers who did not need to sleep because sleep was deemed to be a soldier's worst enemy. So they could perform endless assaults and attacks without having to rest. Or if they did need to rest, they never needed to rest so far that they would need to sleep. However, they did go AWOL rather quickly. They stopped following orders and instead made their own missions, which led to things such as the Fubai Massacre, which was just this group of men who were happily murdering men, women, children, in particular a school full of little kids and other atrocities. So this is why this kind of case has been buried by the US government since then. Through their conversation with Matola, they do identify a possible killer, who is Augustus Cole himself, the preacher, who was someone who always believed that everything they were doing was wrong. And even though he took part in it himself, was quite vocal about this. They do manage to identify Cole has been being kept in some sort of psychiatric facility, mainly in solitary confinement because the people who work there voice the fact that he was interrupting the sleep of other inmates, but doesn't ever really go into what that means. When they go down to meet Cole, they discover that he is missing. Somehow, the doctor in charge of Cole's case has apparently signed him out several days earlier, though the doctor claims that this wasn't him, even though his signature is present on the checking out documents. Through all this, Mulder starts to build a theory about Cole as whatever's happened to him has essentially given him the ability to affect people's perception of reality. Essentially, it's kind of like Cole can create a dream for people, and this dream is lifelike enough, as we've seen with the previous deaths, to kill them, if that's what Cole wills. Through researching Cole, they find out that one of the other doctors, the first one being Dr. Grisham, who performed this procedure, is still alive and is shortly to be returning to New York. Realizing he's likely to be Cole's next target, Mulder and Krycek head to the train station to meet him. Unfortunately, as Mulder sees this doctor, Dr. Girardi he's called, getting off the train, Cole appears and shoots Mulder. But for some reason, unlike the other people, Mulder is not injured by this. He's just laid out long enough for Cole to spirit Dr. Girardi away. Although Cole only spirits Girardi away a short distance into another disused area of the train station, it does take Mulder and Krycek a little while to find him. In the meantime, Cole has subjected Girardi to the same medical procedure he himself once inflicted on them, through a vision in which all the deceased soldiers each take a scalpel and perform this surgery in a very ad hoc manner. Mulder manages to pursue Cole through the train station and finds him about to kill himself, just standing on the edge of a drop holding only his Bible. Krycek appears and sees Mulder facing off with Cole. However, Cole influences Krycek's mind into believing that the Bible in his hand is actually a gun. Due to this, Krycek guns down Cole before he can really explain anything much or be subdued by Mulder. Cole dies of his wounds on the scene. At the end of the episode, both Mulder and Scully find the files they've kept on this case, including the originals that Dr. X gave Mulder, are missing. In the final sting of the episode, we see that Krycek reports to the cigarette-smoking man and others. He tells them that separating Mulder and Scully and dissolving the X-Files hasn't worked, it's only made them stronger. He also notes that Scully is a far bigger problem than they previously anticipated.
Thank you. I think I'll start with what is generally considered the X-Files and this season's biggest mistake, which is introducing a new buddy for Mulder, which is great. Krycek fits the bill and works as being a slightly more open-minded person to replace Scully with. Kind
of young, naive, but enthusiastic.
Yeah, and then immediately revealing he's a part of the Shadow conspiracy and Mulder's in trouble and Scully's in trouble and oh my god. And I do understand that basically how the season was designed has got chopped around because Gillian Anderson would very shortly give birth and that forced a lot of things to happen. But having Krycek introduced and then immediately revealed as treacherous in the same episode does nothing for the tension.
No, I feel this should have been either mid-season or maybe the end of season 2.
Yeah.
After we've grown to love Krycek for a season,
Yeah.
then revealing he's the kind of mole.
Yeah, the person who stole the files from Mulder's car, he's reporting directly to the cigarette smoking man who's being positioned as head honcho villain at this point.
Mm.
I have sympathy for why they've done it this way. It's just, it didn't do them any favours, because Krycek is so convincing as a ally for 99% of the episode.
He's sweet, he's enthusiastic, he believes in Mulder's course.
He's a bit naive.
Bit naive. You're setting him up for, you could either kill him off at the end of the season and it would be upsetting because we've grown to love him, or completely tear at our hearts by making him turn traitor at the end.
Yeah, but no, here he is. He's been villainous already.
I guess in that way you would also fed into trust no one as well. If we've grown to trust Krycek and then he betrays us, you truly see you can trust no one.
Indeed. But again, it's not fair to dig them too much because they were writing around Gillian Anderson's private life.
And having to speed up things you otherwise might have been able to play with a bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be an interesting speculation when we're further down the line of how we think season 2 was designed, because it seems that the next little plot arc was set in place pretty early on. At least they knew they were going to do it. I think they just got the timing wrong. Because I think it's meant to happen. It just wasn't meant to happen. Or they'd written it intending production to start at a certain point and didn't align it to how a pregnancy was progressing or something. As the only thing I could think of why it's so early.
Yeah.
It should be later.
Again, yeah, maybe a mid-season or something like that, not 5 episodes into the season.
Yeah, because mid-season, I think when you get Colony and Endgame, is the kind of mid-season part of this, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Krycek as an idea is great, and it's clear that... didn't you find a comment or something they were going to kill him off if no one liked him?
Yeah, it was the idea. I think much like Phoebe Green in Fire, this is an idea we had for a recurring character, but they thought that if he didn't gel with audiences, they'd just kill him. Yeah. Which is kind of neat they didn't, because Krycek is a long-running character from this point.
I would say, though, this is one of the... I suppose it does feed into government conspiracies. It's an odd one to bring the cigarette smoking man into again. It's much like bringing him into Tombs. It doesn't really gel with the overall thing, though we have got government doing weird, unethical science again.
It's, again, much like Eve and much like Blood that we've just had. It's not part of the X-Files conspiracy, but it is technically a conspiracy episode. Yeah. You're just looking at another kind of government conspiracy that isn't involved with the aliens.
Yes. And Mulder, we really have to have words about your document preservation and hiding tendency. Just hiding it under the carpet in the car may sound good, but someone found that in apparently No Time Flat. Or Krycek obviously found it in No Time Flat.
Despite the fact Mulder had tried to hide it from him and Krycek wasn't aware it was there that we knew of.
Yeah. We do have the interesting note as well, though, where they sort of say he must have found another source. And we don't understand yet how this group reviewed Deep Throat, as in what capacity. Krycek Man has to be associated with Cigarette Smoking Man. So Krycek Man definitely knows that he shot Deep Throat, and Deep Throat was his source.
You know that Krycek Man is associated with Cigarette Smoking Man. You don't know how Deep Throat is associated to either of them.
But it's that oblique thing of he's found another source. So they were aware of Deep Throat as this component and know there's another one. And they apparently don't have a good way of figuring out who X is. Because, of course, we don't know who X is yet.
Or how trustworthy he is. Remember, trust no one.
Indeed, trust no one. There's also the interesting note that X was intended to be a woman. And was filmed.
The first scene with him, you can kind of see a woman's silhouette in some shots.
Yeah, it's because that's why Mulder and X are never on screen together. X was intended to be played by Natalia Nogulish. She's been in Star Trek Next Generation and Deep Space Nine as an admiral, and played Mon Mothma in the radio adaptation of Return of the Jedi. She's in Dark Skies, the X-Files ripoff series, as Dr. Helen Gould. We might get to Dark Skies eventually. And she's in Frasier! Yes! Whoever Susan Kendall was. In Caroline in the City. As you said in your synopsis, X is a very different person to Deep Throat. It's very brusque, isn't it?
I like X. He's intense. Deep Throat was a bit more fatherly than X is.
Yeah, in reflection, yeah. Fatherly or crazy old uncle who's going to tell you the stuff that your parents don't want you to find out. You can imagine him going to the Mulder household. Hey, Uncle Deep Throat, you want to see a foot with 6 toes?
I love Mr. X's personality because you get the fact that it's the kind of I've been assigned to work with you, but I don't like it attitude of Mr. X.
But it can't be that though, because it's got to be I want to leak information to you and I don't like you for some reason.
But it's like that coworker that you're kind of forced to interact with, and you've got to force yourself to be civil with them.
Yeah, I mean, does it imply that basically he's wanted to carry on Deep Throat's legacy, but he's not happy about this? But he liked Deep Throat enough to do this.
It's that I believe in Deep Throat's cause, but
You're an idiot.
My predecessor has just been killed horribly and I don't like where this is going sort of attitude.
See, it's another thing where you could have had some kind of retort from Mulder, though I'm guessing he wants any kind of contact he can get with, I didn't see you at Deep Throat's funeral. Some back and forth of, you didn't know at the funeral. I was by binoculars. Again, it's that funeral must have been, unless Mulder was just making that entire thing up, which in retrospect might have been what he was doing.
Might have been a throwaway comment.
It might have been a throwaway comment. But if it's legit, it's a case of should have been a fascinating cross-section of the intelligence community at that funeral.
You'd want to be not just your binoculars, have your telephoto lens and be trying to identify all these people.
Yeah, but then it doesn't make sense for him to sort of be so certain that Deep Throat is dead, because he wasn't conscious when Scully was with him, so I don't know. But anyway,
based on Scully's first aid, Deep Throat could still be alive.
No, he's definitely dead. It's just she might have been able to save him, I think it's all.
No, I don't trust Scully to take a pulse.
It's a good job that none of these episodes involve Scully with the medical profession, other than doing autopsies, the thing that doesn't need first aid to worry about.
They're already dead. Scully's safe there.
I don't know. Scully's so at first aid, she manages to resurrect someone. We're going to go in pushing Daisy's direction.
Well, the thing this episode reminded me about most, to actually get back to the plot of the episode, is Jacob's Ladder.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
It's very much the plot and the idea of experimenting on your own soldiers in Vietnam, which is the core part of Jacob's Ladder.
Yes.
As well as the characters coming back from Vietnam and seeing horrible visions.
Yes. And it also reminds me, although this is the X-Files being ahead of the curve, this is a concept that a lot of VR and cyberpunk stuff will do with the whole, very much in the Matrix, your brain makes it real. Of why you die in the Matrix, you die in real life thing.
Yeah,
this is a very early precursor to how that's going to be.
It would have been after the likes of Phantasmagoria too, though, which have that kind of plot.
It is one of the weird ones where you do have to start questioning Augustus Cole's power of making people believe they are on fire like that. Well, I can get to a point though. His internal organs have shown all the damage of being fire, and he's got no external things. In terms of biology, there's a very weird thing you're trying to imply there.
The physical effect, perhaps, I believe that you could be convinced that you were dying, because it's only a shred away from like a psychosomatic illness where you develop the symptoms because you believe you have the symptoms.
Yeah, but the symptoms of dying of fire aren't something you're going to be able to do psychosomatically.
Or the guy who shot 100 times. And they said something like internally he's got a load of little hemorrhages, like he has been shot, but he hasn't.
Yeah, if you sort of showed it with gunshot wounds, I'd say yes, they're gunshot wounds. Without the gunshot wounds, in this case, if he's just got tiny hemorrhages.
Mm.
I think it's not a great episode. I mean, Tony Todd is amazing, but that's because he's Tony Todd, basically.
I saw a reviewer from the time who said something like, Tony Todd elevates this from an average episode to a great episode. But yeah, I probably say that the plot is fairly average from what we've seen so far, but Tony Todd is great.
I think in some ways that feeds back into the whole problem with Krycek of this, without the ending sting, this is an absolute basic, very mundane filler X-Files episode.
Mm.
And that's perfect for introducing someone that you can do something interesting with further down the line. Because you have Tony Todd and all these other things as a distraction from, the new guy.
Going from your analogy previously of Little Green Men as being the second pilot, you've got this as like second Tombs, maybe.
Yeah.
Squeeze.
Yes, Squeeze,
you've got kind of reintroduction to, and this is how our Monster of the Week episodes work. You've had this and The Host.
Yeah.
In that sort of vein.
So it's the whole, no, everything's about aliens, we're going to do these weird tangents.
Mm.
And then suddenly, no, we're going back to the aliens by inference, at least.
You've probably had a good run of the things the X-Files will offer there, because you've had Little Green Men as a conspiracy episode, then you've had The Host, which is one with an actual B-movie monster, then you've had government conspiracies with blood, and now we're into, and here's some supernatural people.
With government conspiracies on top.
A bit of government conspiracy too, but it's like a person with psychic powers. You're sort of, here are people doing weird supernatural things episode. So we've had a good little run before our next conspiracy episode of what you can expect from the X-Files there.
It's very true. I like the fact that you made this comment while we were watching it as well, and it's a case of you knowing more about how fire departments work than the writer of the episode when he checks the doorknob on the guy's apartment.
Oh, he grabs it! Yeah. Why?
That's not how you check for heat.
It's even The Office gets this right with you touch it with the back of your hand and things like that.
Because you don't want to actually put your hand out of action is the idea.
Well, it'll either get stuck to the knob or you'll burn the bit of your hand you actually need to use and not the back of your hand, which you don't. It's like, what are you doing, man?
So direction or, writer, it doesn't, whichever way. So moving on a bit, though, basically, Mulder gets the tape recording in the news article. We're going to have to assume this has come from X. Because I don't think we get confirmation.
No, but I think, using the evidence we have, it's Mr. X.
But one thing Mulder doesn't question, and he really should do, is where Krycek got the tape from. Because Krycek has also heard the tape, but then doesn't actually go into any further of how he got it.
I suppose you've got that as well, where Skinner says, well, where's the case here? Yet apparently we're supposed to believe that Krycek has also identified this as a case and already opened it.
Yeah, and you also pointed out there's almost, as much as this does seem to be completely on the level, given how there's no repercussions in the episode of Krycek doesn't work for the FBI or something stupid like that, is he kind of heads off Mulder before he can talk to Skinner about it.
Yeah, I don't think we ever see anything about it either. It's like, no. You don't need to talk to Skinner. It's done. And he prevents Mulder from going and kind of arguing the case with Skinner, which I suppose might go down your line of the whole Krycek's not actually an FBI agent.
But again, it would be in a longer running thing. It would be a great one of, if you kept this up, where Mulder never manages to talk to Skinner with Krycek in the room or something, and there's always something very vague going on with how this is working.
And then you could have your late stage thing where Skinner says, Krycek, there's no Krycek here, and all the rest of it.
But anyway, the thing I want to bring up, though, is when Mulder goes to see Skinner about making the case, when Mulder just blurts out, the only source I've ever trusted is dead, and Skinner just doesn't know how to react to that.
Mulder's having his emo phase.
Very much so. I wonder if Skinner is just sort of just used to this by now. I mean, I keep going back to the host with the whole sort of, I had my reaction to that when I was eating my cornflakes. I'm over that now. Now we're going to go about your behaviour.
I like the idea of Skinner wondering what the hell he did to deserve this.
But then again, we know Skinner isn't a complete innocent in this because he is ensnared in some way with Cigarette Smoking Man. As much as he seems to be nominally on Mulder's side, there is the conspiracy has hooks into him in some capacity.
It's the higher power, as Skinner can only rebel so far.
Yeah, and he knows that people are watching carefully. We don't know what for, but we know they're watching him.
I think we've got the impression, though, that Skinner himself is not a bad person. However, he is a huge roadblock because he has the power to stop Mulder, and the bad people have their hooks in him.
Yeah, and they will get to him. Through possibly Krycek, who also revealed after that scene that basically he's kind of a Mulder fanboy, which is a weird one. Because we get that phrase, which no one really thinks about until you sort of point out, is a case of, people keep saying, we followed your work and believed in what you did. It's a case of, his what? Was that the crop circles? Was that the Flukeman report? Was that Born Again, when he tried to do hypnotherapy repeatedly on an 8-year-old girl after her mother and her doctor said no?
I'd love to know which report they got. Particularly that one about the shape-shifting Amish people.
Exactly. Everyone loves to say, we believe in your work and we want to continue your work. And it's a case of, in aggregate, have you seen his work? There can't be that many other cases he's done that make him sound legitimate and insane. Are there?
I thought that everything he said was crazy, and then we got to the one with the super strong 10-year-olds who could exsanguinate their own parents.
I like little details, though, and it's one of these about Krycek, and it's also, we're going to have to talk a lot about Krycek, but Krykek's probably the most interesting part of the episode, him and Tony Todd.
Yeah, I would like to put in Tony Todd.
But I mean, for an ongoing X-Files thing, because Tony Todd is very dead. We think.
Is he, though?
Yes.
This is the X-Files. Is he, though?
He's not credited for a single other episode.
That's cheating.
That is a bit cheating. But I mean, Krycek being bad with the autopsy, I think was a nice touch. And it's whether that's genuine or that's part of the act as a greenhorn.
He's believably boyish, I think.
Yeah.
But both he's very youthful looking, and his enthusiasm and his slight naivety and stuff like that. You know, it's whether the also being squeamish about dead bodies plays into this act. That you kind of like to think that if you've been through FBI basic training and stuff, that you're beyond the part where dead bodies freak you out.
But then Mulder wasn't good with the autopsy the first time he was in the room, was he?
I think the only time you've seen Mulder noticeably bad was when it was a young girl, though, which is understandable based on Mulder's personality.
But he hasn't been in the room for many genuine autopsies before.
No.
There's only a few of them. So you just saying that made me realise, Krycek, I wonder if they cast him in the same manner of when they cast the replacement for the Fonz in Happy Days. It's the Arrested Development gag where blah, blah, blah replaces their first lawyer. Because he was the Fonz and the other guy is the replacement.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if the whole idea they were going for is Krycek is the person you could recast Mulder with if you wanted to.
If push comes to shove and David Duchovny did not continue, we could move to Krycek.
Yeah, so we'd sort of shift down and use him as the basis for it. And sort of try to appeal to a younger demographic, even though Mulder's popularity is actually on the rise in the real world at this point. One point I think we keep on discussing the last few days is Cole has waited for the 24th anniversary of the massacre in Vietnam.
Oh yes, I should have mentioned that,
as
shouldn't
opposed
I?
to any other date.
It's the Fubai massacre in particular. They just say once that it's the 24th anniversary of that massacre. And for some reason, that's when he's decided to break out the psychiatric facility, which we've got to assume that he's probably been able to do at any time. So why not the 5th anniversary or the 10th anniversary? Why the 24th?
I can only imagine we're going to have to go with the 24th anniversary would be 1994. And also we're going to imply that it's taken him that long to develop his powers.
I suppose we could say that. They did say he's in isolation because he's upsetting people's sleep, but it doesn't really get into what that means.
No.
And it's before, I think, Mulder makes this theory that the guy actually has sleep-controlling powers.
And we don't really dwell on that at all. It's just a case of, what if he has... It's one of Mulder's worst conjectures. It's a case of, what if he could influence people's dreams with his own mind? And we're just going to have to run with that for the rest of the episode.
But because it's Mulder, he's absolutely correct.
Yeah, and it's a case of, no, Mulder, that's crazy.
And again,
How?
when Mulder experiences this firsthand, for some reason, Cole doesn't kill him.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest flaw in it all.
I guess I'm going on the basis of Cole is a religious man and it's retribution for these people who deserve it. Mulder doesn't deserve it, therefore Cole does not kill him.
Was his suicide always a fake out and he wanted to be shot at the end? He was never going to jump onto that spike?
It was either he's going to jump or he always intended to commit suicide by cop.
Yeah, but I think it's suicide by cop because we've got, again, the mortal sin of suicide, don't we?
I suppose
and he's very religious, so presumably that's why he did the fake out with Krycek. Though it's not clear why it didn't work on Mulder. Because Mulder can very visibly see it's the Bible. Also, though, I think in terms of real world, Krycek would get in a lot of trouble afterwards because it'd be a case of, yes, you shot him because you thought you saw a gun. We've failed to turn it up.
I feel I could fix that, and I don't like to try and write things myself, but we don't know how his power works is what if it can only work on people once?
Yeah, I think it's one of these ones that feels like you could have another draft and you could fix a lot of the problems.
I'm going to go on... I'm basing this on Code Geass. You know, the idea of his power, he can only use it on a single person once.
Yeah.
So go for the same thing with Cole's power, because he's already manipulated Mulder, he can't do it again.
That would have worked, yeah. And that would also explain why it's so slow and why he's come around to each one of them individually and not ever try to, do some weird thing with all of them.
It feels like it's a very personal thing, though. You know, you're influencing somebody's dreams, so you're kind of doing it to one person.
But then you're not actually influencing their dreams because they're awake. I mean, some of them can't sleep.
I saw a thing where I can't remember if it was Chris Carter or Howard Gordon talking about the inspiration for this episode, though. And it's the idea is, you know, you can suppress things in your mind when you're awake, but it's in your dreams where the demons come out and it's the way things haunt you. But for the sake of these men who now can't sleep, is that they've got to confront the things they've done in their waking hours. And that's where the kind of inspiration for Cole, the powers, the retribution, all that came from.
I do kind of like how they present, because I thought it was actually in the first scene as well. It is, but not quite the same way. But it's the guy who's shot by all the Vietnam zombies and just his listless lying on the sofa. You get a sense of that he is suffering insomnia from him. It's got that whole, I can't sleep, but I can't focus on anything else. I'm just going to just stare at what's on the TV.
You kind of see it with Salvatore to a lesser degree as well, the one in the cafe.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, it sounds like it should be a great thing, think of all those extra hours I've got because I can't sleep, but his eyes are all red and swollen, he looks an absolute nervous wreck.
Yeah. It's a whole, it was at first, but you'd like a way to turn it off again.
But because essentially they've been lobotomized, there's nothing they can do, there's no way to fix this even.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to the episode?
There is one thing in a really nice reaction, I think. You have very little Scully and Mulder alone time, particularly in this episode. As you say, because of Gillian Anderson's pregnancy, we're getting her less and less in these episodes for a while. But there's a bit where Scully and Mulder talk about Krycek that I quite liked in the episode.
Oh, yeah.
Where Scully kind of comments rather gently on him having a new partner, and Mulder immediately says, oh, yeah, and kind of gushes praise about Krycek, about, oh, he's really open to what I'm saying. And you get this kind of slight flirty jealousy in there for your Sculder shipping as well, where Scully kind of points out, it's like, oh, well, that must be nice to have somebody who's not second-guessing you like I do. And it's quite clear that Mulder really misses working with her, even though he's now got this option of somebody who apparently thinks like him. He still misses having Scully there and how much he respects her and now appreciates her kind of secondary point of view that she brings to the table.
Absolutely. I did actually have that noted down of, is Scully a little bit jealous that this other guy gets to play with Mulder?
Well, yeah, it's much like her jealousy of Phoebe Green. It's like Mulder's got a new boyfriend now.
It's not quite as intense as Phoebe Green. Phoebe Green was the whole kind of, oof, Scully, please. He's not with you.
But it's something we've seen, and it's something Mulder's actually voiced himself, is the fact that we've talked a lot about Scully becoming more like Mulder, but Mulder's also become more like Scully.
Yeah, he is a lot more concerned with actual evidence, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, he still has his Mulder crazy moments, but he will state his outlandish and often right idea of what's happening and then go and find the evidence for it now.
Yeah, but I think there are some cases where Mulder has to have read the script to be able to come to some of his conjectures, because you go, no, where did that come from?
Well, it's like this one with the dream powers.
It is a bit, yeah.
That Mulder comes to this conclusion before he sees any evidence of that.
Yeah.
I also love, and it's me nitpicking, but it's in the finale of this episode when Preacher has got Dr. Girardi and is performing this very delicate brain surgery on him, which I think we get a pulse from the guy, so we have to believe he survived the surgery somehow. But
it's not clear, but yeah.
But Mulder knows that there is a sense of urgency that he has to get there, that Cole has his last victim and is going to kill him, and is the slowest, most careful driver while trying to get there.
Oh, I forgot that. Yeah, the really sort of low-speed drive up to the relevant bit of the train yard.
I believe it kind of Krycek was driving, from what we see a couple of minutes later, that Krycek is a spy.
Yeah.
But it's actually Mulder that's driving. It's no sense of urgency, just slowly, carefully, we'll park that car, we'll get out. You expect him to squeal around that corner knowing where this guy is.
Oh, yeah. So, I give you a choice. If you want to do Kim's Conspiracy Corner this week, given you've only got a little bit to work with, or you want to save it for now?
I'm going to do a lot of conspiracy next week, I think.
I think you will be doing a lot of conspiracy next week.
All I'm really going to talk about is Mr. X anyway, and I'm sure we can get him in next time.
Well, and the fact that Krycek works for Cigarette Smoking Man.
Yeah.
But we don't know what that really means yet. I think you could also make it odd that you've got Krycek as a direct spy when you've got Cigarette Smoking Man clearly has influence over Skinner, unless it's the whole they've realised Skinner isn't as useful as they would like, so they need someone else.
I think it was analysing Scully's threat more in this episode as well, because a lot of Krycek's final report is focusing on the fact that just separating them is not enough, they need to get rid of Scully, essentially.
Yeah, that's, is that setting something up? We'll find out next week, maybe. So yeah, next week, Dwayne Barron Ascension. For now, if our theme music is Envision by Kevin MacLeod. You can find that on incompetech.com, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Our email address is thingsargettingstrange42@gmail.com.
You can also find us on most social media. On Tumblr and Twitter, we are GetStrange42. On Mastodon, we are at GetStrange42 at universedon.com. And on Facebook, you can just find us by searching for Things Are Getting Strange and X-Files Rewatch Podcast.
Thank you all for listening, and until next week, remember,
trust no one.